Hi everyone, it's Michelle Mira. I'm a spiritual success coach, breatharian healer, and modern shaman. And today I'm going to talk about 3 agreements that can help us break free of the lack paradigm. I've been talking about breaking free from the matrix and empowering ourselves financially and manifesting abundance, and this is a continuation of that. It's a mindset, and it's ways that we can be limited and maybe not realize it. And so I'm going to talk specifically about 3 agreements, and I feel like these are essential to start with. I believe that there are many different agreements we can use to break free. So when I talk about these agreements, it's a way to break contracts that we have or break through beliefs that aren't serving us and break through the programming. And when I talk about the lack paradigm, this is what we've existed in is predominantly lack, and so we will feel like we can't ultimately make our own decisions, can't live from a place of sovereignty. We feel like we have to do things according to the way it is, and that's not necessarily true. And so that's what we're going to talk about with these 3 agreements. The first one I want to talk about is time, and this can be a little tricky because we have all collectively agreed on the way that time works. We use clocks, they're predictable, we know how many hours, we know what time looks like. We've all agreed on that together, and we know how much time we have. And this is not true, because ultimately time doesn't exist. And I will give examples of this, but I know that many energy healers, energy workers experience this regularly, that they can step outside of time and space and do for the sessions. When you step outside of time, you realize that time doesn't exist. It's not something that is solid and not something that just stays the same. That it actually, when you're stepping outside of time, it's infinite. And we are able to speed up time, slow down time, bend time, and even stop time. And I have personal experience with this, and I know many other people as well. So as an example, years ago, I decided to just start playing with it. And I would just do it in simple ways. On my way to work, if I was running late and knew that there was no way I was going to get there on time, I would just set the intention. I would get really still inside, set the intention of slowing down time so that I could actually get there right on time or early. And many, many times I was able to do this and get there early. And I knew that it wasn't a fluke, because I would know exactly how long the drive took, and many, many, many times I knew there was no way I was going to get there on time, but I would. And then I started playing with it at night. So say I had stayed up really late and I only had 4 hours of sleep before I had to get up the next day. I know that my body runs better when I have 10 to 12, even sometimes 16 hours of sleep. And so I would set the intention. Most of the time in my meditation is when I would set the intention to stop time, so that I was able to get that full 16 hours of sleep and then wake up refreshed and ready to go the next day. And I could always tell the difference when I did this, because it felt like I had 16 hours of sleep versus just getting deeper sleep in that 4 hours. 2 different experiences. And so this is one that I worked with quite a bit, and it got to where it would work every single time. And the other way is that I would work with speeding up time. If I was in a situation that I really don't want to be in, and I didn't want time to drag, and I would speed it up, and then it would feel like, oh wow, that work day felt like 2 hours instead of 12. So different things like that would play with, and they would happen every single time after a while, the more you practice it. So, and then as an energy healer, being able to step outside time, it's just, that laws of time that we've been taught just aren't all there is, and that we don't have to be limited by it. So the limiting beliefs around time are that we don't have enough time, that if we don't take action right now, then we'll miss our opportunity, that we can somehow miss our destiny, if we procrastinate, or, this whole idea of rushing feels unnatural, and there's a reason for that. It's just another indicator of where we are limiting ourselves with beliefs and collective programming. And we really don't have to. And that's why we're talking about this right now. So the agreement is that I dissolve all limited beliefs around time. And essentially, when we use this agreement, that I dissolve all limited beliefs around time, that we're canceling a contract that has kept us imprisoned around time. And we're breaking free in our minds from the lack paradigm and lack thinking. And this will help on so many levels. It will help on a physical level. It will help on in career, profession, our professional life, our soul, our soul satisfaction, because can be so ingrained that we don't even realize that we're keeping ourselves small. And it's a way of really coming into our own power in a way that we might not have even noticed before. So these contracts are sometimes so ingrained in us, and it's something that we have known our whole lives, that we couldn't even imagine there being something wrong with it, or an alternative choice around it. So I just ask that if you feel instantly triggered by this, like, oh, this is ridiculous, this is out there, any of these limiting thoughts, this is normal. It's just resistance coming up. Whenever we try to change and break through something that is holding us back, there's always resistance, and there's always a justified story around it. So I invite you to look past that and to explore this, because you really don't have anything to lose by exploring this, and you actually have a lot to gain by breaking out of this and by seeing it from a broader perspective, because most of the healing that I've experienced with myself and others has been outside of time as we know it. So give yourself this gift. It can open up doors that really bring you into a place of infinite possibilities and power. So number 2 is the agreement around commitments. This one is a big one personally for me. This is something that I've run into recently. When we make commitments, we feel like we have to stick with those. Our word is our word, and we cannot break these commitments once we've made them. And this can be as simple as you made a commitment to go have lunch with someone, and then the next day, when it's time to go, you don't really feel like you want to go, but you go anyway, and you hate it the whole time, Or it can be something huge, which is what I just went through. I made a commitment that was going to be for a pretty big commitment for the rest of my life, not a relationship, but an agreement that I was going into for a large purchase. And I made the commitment and felt like it was solid, that I was going to be able to follow through on it. And then life happened in March this year. Situations changed, and it was one thing after another that just kept coming into the way and bringing up obstacles. And it felt like no matter how hard I tried, it looked like I wasn't going to be able to follow through on this commitment, or that it was going to take years longer. So I really had to see where I was forcing this commitment to happen, because I had given my word. And I finally got just the guidance that it was time to surrender it. Because I had made this commitment with a friend, I felt like I can't surrender this commitment. I gave my word, but I felt like I had no other choice, and got really clear guidance that it was time to surrender it. And it was a hard decision. Because of this, I lost a friend, because a lot of times, most of the time, when we make commitments in the lack paradigm, then if you cancel, then that means that you're unworthy of love, you're unworthy of friendship, and people will throw this back at you. They will throw in guilt and shame, and how could you possibly do this to me? How could you betray me? You said you were going to, and then you didn't, and how could you? And so we end up losing friendships. People, are telling us, I can't count on you. And so we believe that if we cancel on commitments, we're not worthy of love. We're unlovable. We're bad people. And there's so much shame, guilt, and fear about that. And that is where we are controlled. The best way to control someone is through fear, guilt, and shame. And so I have found, looking back, it would have been better for me to not make the commitment, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know that our family member is going to get sick and be in the hospital, and that we'll have to move to be there for them. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know that we're going to lose all of our business income. We don't know that, we're going to lose everything and not be able to stick to this commitment we made. We don't know what's going to happen. And so for me now, I feel like it's very, very important to not commit and be more flowing, rather than commit and then have to cancel and have to get into this whole fear, guilt, shame triangle with people. So I encourage you to use the agreement that I dissolve all limited beliefs around commitment, and just focus on that over and over and over. And then you will get your own guidance as to how you can handle it. Sometimes you might feel better if you say, I want to make this commitment, but I may cancel in the future. Or to say, I am not able to make this commitment right now. I would like to move into this more, but I'm not able to fully commit, and have a conversation around it, or to have, communication saying, I don't know what the future holds. In my heart right now, I would love to make this commitment, but because it's so far in the future, it may have to be flexible, something like that. And you'll have your own guidance around it, but I encourage you to use this agreement to really open up the limited beliefs and thoughts and control that is wrapped around it. And with all of these agreements, you will notice when you start working with them, resistance. And be aware of that. Work with that. Soften into that. and just notice it and keep working with these, because it will work, just continually reprogramming. But whenever we change something this big, there's always going to be resistance, and it can feel very, very strong. So stay with it and do your best to be in integrity around it, and be completely honest, because it is okay and it's not required to make commitments. And we are not bad people if we have to break commitments. That is honoring our truth, ourself in the moment. And if other people react, then we really don't have control over that. All we can do is be honest with ourselves, be honest with them, and stay in a loving place. And the third one is very closely related to commitments, and that is perfectionism. And this is another big one personally for me. We can feel and have the belief that if we're not perfect, then we're not lovable, we're not good people, that we're bad people, that if we're not perfect, we're not deserving and we're not worthy. Now, this can be a big one for manifesting financial abundance, and in career as well, and even in health. But I do notice this one popping up huge in business and around financial abundance. We all have our different stories around perfectionism. But for me, one that pops up a lot with manifesting abundance and money is that if I'm not perfect in a job, in business, then I'm not worthy of making large amounts of money. Or if I'm not working really hard without making mistakes, then I'm not worthy. So this one has held me back, and I'm sure many people back in a lot of areas. But so, it would be so bad sometimes that if I went to a job and I made one mistake or had one conversation that didn't go smoothly, then my whole day would be ruined, and I would just downward spiral, and I would feel completely unworthy of earning money that day. And especially when I was in a tipped situation, I could see it reflected right away in the tips that I received. I have also seen this in working in business, and it directly would correlate with the amounts of money that I would bring in. And these downward spirals would go into weeks or months or, half a year. And it would directly, the amount of money that I would make would be in, I would say, a direct response to the downward spiral and the beliefs that I had. So if I made a mistake, or what I perceived as a mistake, then it would affect my commission. It would affect the way people treated me. It would, people would start speaking to me without respect because I was in this downward spiral of feeling like, oh, well, I'm just a big piece of crap because I made a mistake. Or I would not take action because I didn't feel perfect. And if I did take action and it wasn't perfect, then I would just go into a downward spiral. And I've talked to so many people that have this. This also relates to, the imposter syndrome, where we feel like we're a fraud, that we're not good enough, we don't have the skills, we're not ready. All of this is tied with perfectionism. And so the agreement is that I dissolve all limited beliefs around perfectionism. And again, this is releasing a contract saying that we are beautiful and perfect the way that we are. And we don't have to be what others think of as perfect. We don't, and that's the thing is, what's the definition of perfect? Who's defining that? And this is a losing battle because one person's idea of perfection looks completely different than another person's. Some people may think that it's, the fancy cars, the fancy clothes, having your hair perfect, having expensive shoes. And if you don't meet that criteria, then in their eyes, you're not worthy of time and affection and love and respect. And so there's just no way that we can all meet those expectations for every person. And so this gets into people pleasing. And that's such a huge area that we take on fear, guilt, and shame. And again, this is where we can be controlled by others. So when we stop playing the game, the lack perfection game, then we can't be hurt, and we can actually be freed to be ourselves, to be our unique, creative genius. Because as long as we're in this perfection lack contract, then we're holding back and we're not stepping into what we're here to share with others. And trust me, this one has been a huge one for me. And so many of us will feel like, I'm here to do something so big and beautiful for others, but I just can't seem to. And sometimes it comes back to this agreement that we have, and it's in the back of our mind. It's in our deeply ingrained programming of who we are. So first thing we have to do is separate it from what we identify with, and that's what these agreements can help us do. Again, you might feel resistance coming up. You might feel thoughts that are trying to discredit this video, or just, oh, I don't have that. Oh, I used to have that, but I'm way past it. If you're having resistance, then that's a good sign. That means that you can have a breakthrough in this area. If it's not for you, you won't have any resistance. You won't have anything about it at all. You'll just be like, oh, I like that concept, that's useful, that's great. And then you'll move on. But if you are having resistance and you're having thoughts that, are judgmental or trying to talk you out of it, then this is an area that there could be your gifts that are being held back or oppressed, or that are kind of have been pushed back down. So this can be a place of bringing your power out in subtle ways. But then when you have the breakthroughs, these powers emerge that you didn't realize you weren't even tapping into. And they come back into your being, and you feel more alive and more you and more your essence that you're meant to share with the world and with others. And so a lot of times that feeling of being stuck and not knowing how to move forward can be related to and linked to limiting agreements that we've had that are putting us into guilt, shame, or fear on a regular basis, and so subtly and so just second nature that we don't even realize it's happening. But the stuck feeling can be an indicator, which is good news. I hope that this has been helpful, even a little bit, and that we all can step into more joy and more power and a place of really coming home to self. And if you're new here, definitely hit subscribe. And if you've already been working with these limiting beliefs, then definitely comment below, join in, let me know where you're at. If this is something brand new and you're stepping into it, you feel resistance and you feel like you need to talk about it, then comment below and reach out, and we'll talk about it and really move through all these limited places. And we're going to talk more about this, but this is the 3 areas to really focus on right now. And definitely share your breakthroughs, because you will have them in working with these. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.